Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, yes or no, and I do mean yes or no, is the Taliban a terrorist organization?
The Taliban has been designated as a terrorist organization. That's correct.
And are you aware that news reports last week show that the Taliban has already set up a school to teach suicide bombers? Are you aware of that reporting?
I've not seen that report.
I'll make
but
sure.
I'd be welcome if you'd like to share it. Please do.
I'll absolutely do that. Thank you very much. You guys keep talking about insinuating that you're going to make an agreement with the Taliban. If they're a terrorist organization, if they have people in their leadership that are on the FBI's terrorist watch list, if they have leadership that is known to be terrorists, and you here have said they are a terrorist organization, what makes it right to even negotiate with these people?
Anything we do, Congressman, will be for purposes of advancing the interests and national security of the United States. And those interests, among other things, involve ensuring that people can continue to travel freely out of Afghanistan, including any remaining American citizens who want to leave.
Well, if I could on that note,
counterterrorism commitments,
very much related to that point, if I could,
we will do so in a way that's fully consistent with our laws.
Mr. Secretary, I'm reclaiming my time. On that note, you have said, and we have said, and your department has said, and the DOD has said to people who are sitting over there, now that we're all gone, they should destroy their documents because the Taliban are searching them and killing them with those documents. You say you got a plan to get those people out of there, but they can't get on an airplane without documents. You have nobody over there to print them documents. How are they going to get out of there? What is your plan if they have no documents? Your people told them to destroy the documents. DOD said destroy the documents. We've told them, because we're talking to hundreds of them on the phone, U.S. citizens, SIVs. What's the plan?
We did not tell people to destroy documents, although I understand that some people did for understandable reasons in many cases.
Yeah, we've got the pictures of the dead bodies. I mean, I can show you the videos that friends of mine, former interpreters that I know, are videoing and sending to me. I can send those to you. They're destroying those documents because they don't want to wind up on a dirt road bleeding to death. So what's the plan to get those individuals who have no documents now out of that country?
The plan is this. First, the Taliban-led government has made commitments to recognize documents to exit the country, to include U.S. passports, to include green cards, to include visas. For those who have those documents, we're working with other partners, including Qatar.
Well, I mean Turkey, for the people who don't have documents, Mr. Secretary, that we know. You just said it was understandable that they would destroy those documents. So what are we doing for the people who don't have documents?
And we are putting in place exactly that, a mechanism to make sure that we can get people the documents they need in order to leave the country. And I'm happy to take that up in a different setting to go into more detail. But
okay, you're insinuating that might be classified. Okay, fine, we can do that. Considering that the agreement between the Taliban and Afghan governments that the president keeps talking about, everybody keeps talking about this, agreement between the Taliban and the Afghan governments that they're just following. We're following the agreement. It looks like my time's about to expire. I'll see you in a few minutes when it's my turn. Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
I now recognize Representative Mark Green of Tennessee, who's the ranking member of the Subcommittee in the Western Hemisphere, Civilian Security, Migration, and International Economic Policy for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Secretary Blinken, your credibility, I think, would be a lot greater if you'd at least own something. Something, X, Y, Z, something. Yet you follow the lead of your president and you blame everybody else. It's not your problem. It's Trump. It's somebody else. You'd have credibility. Let me give you an example. HKIA. You had no plan or a horrible plan to get people into the gate. Just get them through the gate. My colleagues and I had hundreds of people on the phone that were U.S. citizens sitting at the gates and they couldn't get in. That's a failure on you, either to plan or you had a horrible plan, but those U.S. citizens couldn't get through the gate. Just own it. Get some credibility. Own it. You keep telling us that the DOD and President Biden had no idea that the Taliban would be so successful, the collapse of the Afghan forces. And then you want us to believe you when you say the Russians and the Chinese aren't empowered by this. That kills your credibility by saying, hey, we failed to predict that this would happen. Nobody had an idea that they'd collapse like that. And then you say, oh, but I assure you, the Russians and the Chinese aren't empowered by this, and we're supposed to believe you. I've already talked about the documents. The United Kingdom, I'm sure you're familiar, it went viral. A member of Parliament in the United Kingdom on the floor of the House of Commons, Tom Tugendhat, basically called the withdrawal, President Biden's withdrawal, shameful, and said that the UK, our greatest ally, should reconsider how dependent they are on the United States. Yet you sit here today and tell us that NATO was completely fine with everything. Y'all coordinated everything with NATO and it was all good. That's what you've communicated to me, at least, or here today. And yet a member of Parliament is saying it was a shameful withdrawal on the floor of the House of Commons, our greatest ally. The headline of The Economist a few weeks ago, I don't know if you saw it, but it said, Biden's debacle. I'm not so sure NATO will agree with you that they were all in on this together. Now, I will say this. It is against the law, the United States law, to give material aid to a terrorist organization. You said earlier today, when I asked you before, if the Taliban was a terrorist organization, you said yes. $85 billion, I would consider that material aid to a terrorist organization, Mr. Secretary. And you had, here we are. Oh, well, but wait, you admitted we had no idea that the Taliban would be so successful. We had no idea that, the Afghans would fail like this. Well, that's your fault. That's your administration's fault. I guess maybe it's the intel community's fault. That's what you're really saying. Hey, CIA and all you other guys, you failed to give us good intel here. We had no idea this was going to happen. But we're supposed to trust you when you tell us other things about the Chinese and the Russians. Considering rumors of ISIS support for the, ISI's support for the Taliban, have you guys reached out to India as a possible staging area for the over-the-horizon forces? I'm talking northwest India as a potential, because we all know Qatar and the Doha, the other places are just a little bit too far, Kuwait, all that. What about northwest India, and have you reached out, have you thought about that?
Let me just say generally, Congressman, we're deeply engaged with India across the board. With regard, though, to any specifics about over-the-horizon capabilities and the plans that we put in place, or will continue to put in place, I'd rather take that up in a different setting, and I think the chairman referenced that at the start of the hearing.
I think that's very fair, and I appreciate you saying that, and I'm glad to at least know that there's an opportunity to talk about that, because I think that, from my standpoint, is an opportunity we should seize. I'd like to go back to the documents and give you a few seconds to talk about that, because I do want to hear your plan for those individuals, if you can, today. And if you can't, then fine, we'll talk about it behind closed doors. But I am very concerned about people who destroyed documents. Can you elaborate at all on that?
I really appreciate that, and I just want to assure you, but I'd rather have this conversation in a different setting, that we are putting in place plans to make sure that people can get documents that they need, and documents that the Taliban says it will recognize to allow them to leave the country. I'd be happy to pursue that conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield.